Do you want to feel more confident, more radiant, or more alive inside? Or maybe you just want to make more money, have better relationships, or leave a legacy that makes a difference. Energy alignment is the key to it all. So today's episode of the Creatrix Energy Show is about energy before action to create your best life using what already exists within you. So welcome back. I'm so glad you're tuning in. I'm Kat Moulton, your guide to unlearn, unlock, and unleash. And Creatrix Energy is a path to help you do all that and to tap into your power source so you can learn to completely embody your life force energy, step into your excellence, and express your true nature and purpose. And my friends, this is vital because we are in a pivotal time on the planet. Humanity is waiting for you to set your heart on fire. Isn't it time you stopped hiding and pressing down that fire? Because right now is the time for you to take action with clarity and courage to create changes in the world. And the change begins with you feeling that fire and feeling fully alive on the inside. So last week, the vibrant Catherine Ann Esch filled in for me while I was away. Catherine talked about one of my favorite topics, grounding and living your greatest now ever. At the same time she was hosting the show, I was speaking at a live event that Lisa Hannigan created. If you don't know Lisa, her show Engage and Shine airs right before mine. She is an amazing soul, and I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago about engaging and connecting with and in front of your audience. So check out those episodes if they resonate with you. And thank you for being in the audience today because I am delighted to have Kristen Lemaster back on the show. Kristen was here a few months ago with the Rooted in 3 team talking about the energy of the heart. If you don't know Kristen, you should. Kristen's an energy medicine practitioner that has studied and tested, in her words, quote, an embarrassingly large number of different energy medicine modalities. In her first act in life, she was an engineer and a scientist. So her passion really lies in the evidence-based energy methods that are strongly rooted in science. I just love that, I have to say. So after more than 2 decades of experiencing and trying different approaches, she has found herself firmly walking on her spiritual path and truly tapping into the power to create her own health and a life of her dreams. And while she believes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to energy work, she is able to help others align their life with their intuition and purpose by providing simple yet effective energy experiences that are customized to match her clients' needs. So Kristen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Kat. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here because whenever we talk, I never know what's going to unfold. So I'm really looking forward to see where we go today.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I am really happy that you're back because I love you and your work and that, divine intervention kind of, connected us about a year or so ago. And I love your work and your approach. And I have learned from you, like it said in your bio, but that you have studied and tried lots of different energy modalities over the years. What are some common lessons that show up across them for you?
Sure. So I have tried and tested on quite a few different methods for energy. I think my list is actually over 30 right now. But actually, one of my favorite things about that experience was discovering these common trends and threads among them. And I find it personally just very neat that most of the energy programs out there are basically saying the same thing. We're all on the same journey, we're all headed in the same direction, but we're on different paths. So they
Mm,
provide different tools and guidance and approaches. But again, basically, there are so many commonalities in what they're saying. And it's not just the modern day programs either. When you start to dig into the ancient texts and
mhm.
practices, you can see the same common ideas and teachings that we hear about today. So just really neat. One of my top 3 programs that I've experienced is the Academy of Intuition Medicine,
Okay.
and my favorite classes there were when the instructor would walk in with a stack of books and she would teach a lesson. So it would be an energy concept or an energy system in the body. And then she would take the stack of books and say, Okay, you know what I just taught you? This is what they call it in shamanic healing. This is what they call it in quantum physics. This is what they
Ooh.
call it in traditional Chinese medicine, the Bible, the Quran, Buddhism, Hinduism. And to me, I was just so validating that what we were experiencing is real and it had been observed by others, throughout time. And honestly, I think there's a real importance in acknowledging these common trends
Mhm.
because it really highlights how connected we really are. And when we start to focus on our common ground, it can really start to dissolve that separateness between us. And to me, that is what has really accelerated my progress in energy and I think as a human being as well. So, but to answer your question, yes, there are many common threads. I use three in my everyday energy practice with myself
Okay.
and my clients. So, what I think are the three most useful common threads through all of these programs are number one, that we are not a body that happens to have energy. We are
Mhm.
actually energy first. We are energy or spirit or soul or whatever you want to talk about that happens to have a body and a mind.
Mm.
And when you make this paradigm shift and start to, look up and look around and look within and see yourself as energy, see everything around you as energy, I think that's a really great way to just blow that door to the energy world wide open. So
I love that. Let's blow open some doors, right?
let's do, yeah. Don't just open them, you knock them down.
Use
Yeah.
that energy. I have an energy story about that, blowing things up later if we have time. But I really appreciate that you shared that because I've studied a few modalities, not nearly as many as you, but those common threads that you touched on, like in different texts and religion, in ancient ones and newer ones, there is that theme. And I appreciate that. And I really appreciate your background in the science, that's rooted in that studying. Like sometimes we can overanalyze and get into stuff, but there is a time and a place to look at things objectively and like you said share these common threads or really get in touch with what they are, so I appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Yeah. So can I have two
Yeah,
more. Can I tell you my two other
please.
okay.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. So the second one is just about this is something I see and it took me a little while to get on board, which is why I wanted to mention it, but almost every program teaches that we are here in our human bodies with our human minds to learn a lesson. We are here for
Mhm.
our spirit and our energy to grow and to evolve. And again, when we make that shift and we acknowledge that we're actually here for a purpose and we're not here alone, we have soul contracts with other people and we're helping others live out their soul purpose. Again, I think it can really help to make that shift in the perspective in the
Mm.
world. And then the third thing is something I've heard in probably almost every energy medicine program, and that is the analogy that we are waves in an ocean. So, this whole idea is that we are all one. There's a
Mhm.
oneness, there's a collective consciousness. And if you think about it, we're all individual waves coming out of the ocean, and each wave is so unique, and there'll never be another wave like that one. But when it
Mm.
comes down to it, all waves are still the ocean. And again, I think when we start to look at everything as being connected by energy, it can really help to shift things in a big way.
I love that. And I love all three of them. The third one, I just want to say resonates with me because I love the ocean. And I do, I feel more grounded and more present when I'm there, just something about it. And I love the concept of the waves. But I will say the second one I struggle with the most, and I know it to be true, but yet when my mind takes over, I struggle with the soul contracts and the experiences. And maybe we can dive into that a little bit later. Because I do like you, I love that you brought up in the first one that we are energy beings first. And I think when I forget that is when I get stuck in number two. I'm too much in my head. And I think that a lot of people listening may feel this similar, like, and have struggled with that concept. So that's why I'm glad that we're having this conversation today. And yes, we don't always know where it's going to go with me. I tried to prepare, but sometimes it just unfolds and things come up. And hopefully we'll have time for that demo. But the title of this episode is Energy Before Action, and you have a program around that. Can you explain more to our viewers, like what that means, based on what you've just shared with us?
Sure, sure. This idea of energy before action was really a way to, for me, to marry all of my academic knowledge to
Mm,
actual experience in life. So, this is just, again, one approach to practically integrating energy into your day to day activities. And the
mm,
premise is that all of our life experiences, again, from those everyday activities to our physical and mental health,
mhm,
to our relationships, our life defining moments, for all of that, there is subtle energy interactions that underlie all of it.
mm,
So, for example, in energy medicine, disease is thought of to start always as a disturbance in the energy field. And that disturbance then manifests itself in our physical body and our mental health, through no fault of our own. But
mhm,
when you start to think of how the energy is underpinning that dis-ease, you can see that complementary to medicine for our physical and mental bodies, you can also go to the root of it and see if you can clear that energetic disturbance. So that
mhm,
when you're in a state of energetic wholeness, that you will just automatically align and create optimal health.
mhm,
So that's just one example. But when you start to become fully aware of all of the energy that's happening in the background, and again, that just underlies everything in our life, you can start to see how you can change things in your physical life just
ooh,
by first shifting your energy.
okay.
So energy before action. If you have a problem or a challenge in your life or a trend that just keeps coming back at you, or even if it's not a challenge, but you have spiritual urgency, or you have something that you feel like there's something more out there, instead of jumping right in, like you said, with our minds, trying to really just kind of push our way through it. If you can stop and address what's happening on the energetic level,
Mhm,
what will happen is that things will just naturally unfold in a way that doesn't take you as much effort. So,
mm,
quantum physics is really starting to show us that our outer world is really a reflection of our inner world, right? And our inner world meaning energy. So, if you can stop and pause and do the inner work first, your outer
mhm,
world will start to align with that
ooh.
energetic growth and expansion without you having to put in all of that effort. So,
I love that. I had a friend, she was a healer and a coach. She's passed, she's on the other side, but she used to always say that, "Stop efforting," just stop. And in this last year, I mean, I appreciate what you shared. I really stepped back and started to do so much less than I ever have to really create that sense of alignment for myself. There's some issues, like you said, that repeated things that have been coming up, and to deal with a really frustrating and difficult experience when I think of that in my own life and have to step back and pause. Just what you said. I don't have to always take a year-long pause, but a lot of pausing. So I appreciate what you shared. Would you be willing to share how you've applied this in your own life with a personal example or story?
oh, sure, sure. Something really big happened for me a couple months ago, actually. We had to move.
Okay.
And we live in San Francisco, and which is
Oh,
a lovely place to live, but the real estate market here is crazy. And in fact, we moved here for work, didn't think we would stay, and we were renting, and
mhm,
it's just really hard to buy a home here. I mean,
yeah.
it's just a crazy, crazy market. So, um, and we were living in a really great place where our kids were best friends with the kids next door, and it was a really nice setup, except our landlord was in a power struggle with us, and she was intrusive. She was rude. She
Mm,
was very controlling of our actions. She would sometimes sit in her car outside of our house. I mean, it was weird, but in our last couple months there, her harassment went to a different level, to the point
mhm,
where I didn't feel safe there anymore.
okay.
And, nasty notes on our car in the garage. I would be working, she would be on the sidewalk outside my window just screaming at me, maniacally ringing the doorbell. On a couple of occasions, my son was in the garage and she was sitting in her car out on the street, and she would kind of follow him a little bit.
Mm,
And, you know, not feeling safe at home is a big trigger for me, right? So anyway, we're working on repairing the relationship. What can we do? How do we keep our kids feeling emotionally safe? Like all of that sort of
Mhm,
stuff with our minds. We went right at it with solutions, effort, 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 right? And
mhm.
it just kept getting worse. And I actually had a day where I went back to bed after I dropped my kids off at school. I was in my pajamas and I was like, Kristen, you know better, energy first. And I spent probably 4 hours that morning working on why am I so triggered, right? And I
Mm,
worked on my first chakra. I was clearing out my energy field. I really worked on my grounding. And then looked at my soul contract with this other woman, knowing that
mm,
she's not a bad person, but we have a soul contract with each other that is really starting to slap us in the face, right?
mhm.
And I really pulled out all my training tools, cleared that soul contract, and then also realized that one of the trends in my life is to have angry old white women who can't be reasoned with, like coming into my life all the time and creating chaos, right? And so I was like, this is part of my soul lesson. So again, I did all that work, I dug into it, and when all was said and done, we found a single family house in the best neighborhood for kids in the
Mm,
city. We got it under the asking price and without any competition, which
wow.
I which again, in San Francisco, when a house like this goes up on the market, it's usually hundreds of thousands over, 19 different offers. And so for me, I really felt like by taking that time and doing the inner work first, my
Mhm,
outer world just snapped into place. And everything about this home that we live in now is perfect. It has every single thing on our wish list. So again, it's just an example of how, like, if you can just stop and pause for a minute and
mhm.
don't do the I'm going to get through it, but sit back and allow.
Mm.
It's crazy the things that can unfold.
I love that story on so many levels, and I'm very happy for you for one for finding a safe place that you love with your family. But I also sell real estate part time, so I know it is so hard to find houses in certain cities throughout the whole country right now. But like cities like San Francisco or Boston, where I am, where there's a lot of tech and a lot of jobs, it's really competitive. And when listening to you, it reminded me of a story I just heard a couple of weeks ago from a realtor who was my realtor. I can't sell my own house. She sold mine. And about it aligns with some of this work and even the work that I do. Like I have a fire and ice process, and part of it, the I is for intention, right? So it's that stepping back and setting an intention without maybe some of the attachment. And her story, she had a client that was looking to ironically move near the beach, but the only way they wouldn't move to whatever town it was if they found a house in their current town on a very specific street. And that was their intention. I don't know them or much more of the story. Well, a house on that street, not just any house, opened up for sale. Somehow the realtor connected with another realtor and like, yes, I do know someone who might be interested in it. And it was this couple who was going to move away the house they'd been eyeing for a couple of years. And same thing, multiple offer situations all over the place. And without going on the market, they ended up negotiating that house. And so I think like having an intention and being open and allowing is so important, because when we think we can't, like when energetically, it closes all the doors, right? So I love, I
Yeah,
love your story.
I was just gonna say too, for me, the energy work after too was really important. And the energetically, I actually went back and thanked this woman, because if it hadn't been for her harassment in the physical world, we never would have ended up here. And you can kind of see how soul contracts play out, where if I was just with my mind and my heart and my emotions and my body, I would have just been like, I don't ever want to see this woman again. But then part of me was like, she was doing probably what I asked her to do on a spiritual
Mm.
level. So,
So
but I just want to say too, energy before action. If anyone wants to try this out, my biggest like woohoo's are travel. And I will tell you, the
mm,
energy world will support you. I can't tell you how many times I've like been bumped to first class or walked into the airport just in time to catch an earlier standby flight in first class. I mean, there's when you really sit and say, like, I'm just going to allow the energy support in traveling is also pretty fantastic.
I love that. I'm going to work on that more. I don't use it with travel as much, but I'm going to start traveling more. So I'm going to work on that. But I want to ask you because it is such a beautiful story in both of them and how these things unfold. But some of us sometimes have a lot of resistance, right? And I feel like I could be the queen of resistance. I've been a slow study. Um, when people are resisting this allowing and repeated actions and patterns come up in their life, like what can they do to overcome that or shift the paradigm so that they're open? Do you have any suggestions or
I do, and thank you so much for bringing this up. When we have persistent patterns in our life, whether it's a type of person or, oh, I always get hurt, I'm always the one left out, I'm always losing my things. When you
Mhm.
have this trend, I like to think of it as the universe like smacking you in the face over and over again, saying, "You have a lesson here to learn. Why aren't you learning it? I'm going to keep
Mhm.
tossing this in your path until you can figure it out." And for me, I think the first thing is just bringing awareness to that is sometimes enough to loosen the grip on making progress to move through that. And if you can do it with a smile, like when I sort of recognized this trend of like unreasonable older ladies who like to scream at me, I just was like, "Oh my god, that's so funny." Like I actually took a minute and I said it out loud and it made me laugh a little bit. So, again, bringing awareness, seeing if you can be playful and curious about it. But again, I think then this is where you dive into energy and where there are limitless potential on where you can go. And I think that that's where sometimes things can get confusing because
Okay.
once you start to do the inner work, again, there are so many approaches to it.
Mhm.
And I would just say, just try one thing on at a time and see how it feels to you. And whether it is something like grounding, whether
Mhm.
it's something like sitting to listen and asking your intuition questions like, why am I always the person who's knocked down? And see what comes to you, right? You can really have
Mhm.
this dialogue with your energy. And what you'll end up with is like a little trail of breadcrumbs as you start to do that energy work and evolve. But there is no one size fits all. I mean, I wish I could tell you
Right.
step one, two, and three, and you're done. But I think awareness, I think a little bit of joy around it, and then coming inside and seeing where it takes you and allowing that to
Mhm.
happen. But in terms of I wanted to talk a little bit too about resistance because resistance is
Okay.
really important. Um,
Great.
you know, I I've had like a wonderful life. And
Mhm.
sometimes though I really felt like I was trying to jam a square peg in a round hole. And I had one moment in my life when my kids were really young where I actually said to myself, you can get through anything. And it made me stop for a minute and say, like, why do I have to get through it? And I realized I was leaning forward with my mind. And I was like, I can grind and I can really just fight my way through anything and be successful. But that didn't feel good. And
Mhm.
that's when I realized this resistance here is actually a message. And
Mm.
I think resistance is your energy speaking to your mind. Our mind is thinks it's in charge. But our mind is here to protect us. And that's,
Right.
it takes incomplete information and puts a story together around it so that we can function in our human and physical lives. But when we hit resistance, again, I think it's really important to stop for a minute and say, something's going on that my mind doesn't understand.
Mm.
But when we go back to that concept that we're energy first and we can build some of that trust, again, go inside, do the energy work. And again, your mind does not have to be on board right away and just see what that resistance is because it's likely your energy trying to tell you stop and reassess.
Mm. I appreciate that. And I was thinking of a couple of things in my life, one past and one current, where I have resisted so much. And I do some of my own energy work to shift that, but I sometimes fall with certain situations, fall back into that same resistant pattern and, get out of it sooner and sooner. And we don't have a lot of time left. Could you give us a little demo maybe or tips
Sure.
on how I could? move through
Sure.
my own resistance for
Yeah,
a few?
let's do it. Because
Okay.
honestly, I think demos are the best way for people to be able to then try it on for themselves. So this is great.
Okay. So we'll leave some of our end stuff out of the equation. Let's do this. Or what do I do or say or
If you want to tell me about a trend in your life, all we'll, what we'll do, we won't obviously do the healing and
yeah.
everything,
Okay.
but we'll see what we see.
Okay. So, different than something we talked about the other day, I am resisting a change that's going on with someone in my family because I have beliefs around it that it's not all real. I am open to allowing it if it's real, but I resist because I feel like there's other energies or powers at play or influencers and people with their own agenda creating part of the issue. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I've been in resistance. And when I pull back and I'm not and do a little more energy around it, the situation lightens up, but it's still there, and I know that I'm resisting. So I don't know if that's enough information, but I struggle with it, honestly.
It absolutely is. And I'm going to tell you the minute that you started to talk about it, the thing that lit up for me is that we all have a very specific energy system in our body. And this is what really showed up for me. And the energy system is about masculine and feminine energy and the balance of that in your
Mhm,
body. And then also about overcoming the duality of masculine, feminine. So, as you were talking, this system of yours, it lit up. And what I can see is that on your left side, the flow in that part, in that meridian inside your body is very stagnant. And I think the other side, and I don't know, normally when we look at this energy system, one side is feminine, one side is masculine.
mhm,
But whichever one is not flowing great, the other one is overcompensating. So that was the first thing that jumped. So if we were, if we were going to kick the can down the road, we would
mhm,
probably do a whole session to really start to build and magnify your energy and really try to get that system balanced and get that system flowing. And, acupuncture is a great,
mhm,
complementary for this system. But the other thing that really popped for me was that up here where you're taking in a ton of information,
mhm,
you are taking it in and immediately tossing it back out, and you are trying to orient yourself to things outside of you, as opposed to taking that information, sitting with it, and then orienting yourself from the inside. Because to me it looked like there was this confusion where you were trying to find truth in here, trying to find truth out there, truth in here, truth out there, and it was
mhm.
creating this sort of push and pull with your energy. So those were just the things that popped. And again, I mean, I don't know if this helped. I'm happy to give you more information about it, but I don't know, did any of that resonate with you?
A lot of it resonates, and there is a push and pull. And even the whole masculine, feminine, we can talk for hours on this, and layers of it. So it definitely resonates. Maybe after the show, we can, depending on who's with us chatting, we can talk about it more with them if they're open or any of their questions. We are so short on time, and I have so many more questions. So Kristen, thank you so much for being here today. How can people find you if they want to know more about you and your work?
Oh, sure. Just jump on my website. It's www.soulfulnavigation.com. You can also find me, come to Clubhouse, actually. If you are not on the
Mm.
Clubhouse app yet, it is the best thing since sliced bread. Come to the Clubhouse app. You can search for Kristen Lemaster, Kat Moulton. Sandra's here too. And we have a club together. It's called the Everything is Energy Club. And we talk like this all week long,
Mhm.
not with our faces, just with our voices. So that's another great place to connect.
Oh, cool. Thank you for dropping that. It is so fun to connect with you and Sandra and so many other great people there.
Thank you. Thank
Do you
you.
have any special offers or anything for our
I
viewers on
I
your
do.
website?
I have a free downloadable meditation. It's called I Am Love, and you can find it at soulfulnavigation.com/love, or just look under the meditations there. But it's about generating the vibration and frequency of unconditional love, which
Mhm.
really nourishes you, but can really clear out stuck energies, stuck emotions, transform all your fear-based stuff into love-based stuff. So it's just a really deep way to reset yourself.
Oh, awesome. Well, I think I have that meditation from months ago. I'm going to have to re-listen to it. Thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing that. Thank you, everybody who's been watching live. We invite you to hang out for the after party and continue the conversation unrecorded with Kristen and I if you want to know more. And if you are watching the replay um, and like what was shared in this episode and have your own conversations with me, join my new community at creatrix.club. It's KREATRIX.club, or hop over to my website. I'll have a blog up soon about Kristen and where you can find her if you missed any of the information. It's katmoulton.com. And you can go to the Win-Win store or even check out this the Win-Win Network. It's not just a network, it's a global movement to support women in all areas of their life. So there's so many great speakers, so many great show hosts, and so much um, just richness in the store. So I invite you to check it out. And thank you again for being here today, all of you. And just a reminder that it is not just a show. The show, it's also a movement to remind you that you are a powerful creatrix living in the matrix. You can create what you want to create. So energy before the action steps. Kristen, thank you for reminding us about that. And
Thank you for having me.
oh, thank you for being here. And because the world needs women who are fully awake, moving their energy, who are unified in heart and purpose. So from my heart to yours, and that unconditional love that Kristen talked about flow through you and expand to create waves of pure positive impact. Um, Come back, see us next time. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your presence today. So much love.